Good afternoon, everyone. I'm EJ, and it is my honor to welcome you all to the 4th Annual State of the Youth Forum, live at the True Colors Fund 40 to None Summit here in the Los Angeles LGBT Center. Since 2013, State of Out Youth has lifted the voices of the LGBTQ youth, opening a dialogue that we are so grateful to be a part of. In a few moments, 5 remarkable young people from across the country will share with you their truths, their experience, and the most pressing issues facing the LGBTQ youth today. I'd like to take a minute and thank our partner organizations for their help in making this year's State of the Union possible. Before we get started, I'd like you also to join us on social media by tweeting questions and comments with the hashtag #OutYouthForum. Be sure to join me and the rest of the panelists after the forum for a live stream discussion where we'll be answering your questions and having a more in-depth conversation. Now, I'd like to welcome our moderator, 2015 40 of the 40 honoree and true fellow, Riviana Hyatt, to the stage. Joining us today on the panel, we have Ayanna Horton, a 2016 True Colors Fund 40 out of 40 honoree and a true fellow. Dominic Gravina from the Trevor Project. Genevieve Duransley from Lambda Legal. Johnny Ramos from GSA Network. And Thomas Davis from the Human Rights Campaign. So without further ado, State of Out Youth. Here we go.
Hi, can everybody hear me okay? There we go. Hey, I'm Riviana Hyatt. I'm 24 years old. I have been involved with True Colors Fund for about the last 2 years. I became involved with them through my own lived experience. He's trying to steal my spotlight. It's really rude. I became involved with True Colors Fund through my own lived experience with homelessness, growing up for years and years, and through my own lived experience with growing up with incarcerated parents, and through growing up with my own lived experience of being alongside substance abuse. I bring that up to illustrate how commonly those themes weave in and out of the American queer narrative. We are at a particular crux of this issue at this moment in time. Images of queer people in media are at an all-time high, but as is often the case with increasingly prevalent representation of a marginalized group, that influx of representation comes with an erasure, a watering down, and a loss of something essential. Often, the queer figures in media reflect an ease of life that many young queer people in America do not identify with. Many of us are still scrounging for crumbs when it comes to seeing our experiences reflected. When I look around this room, I think about the fact that that damn rainbow flag does not have enough colors nearly to reflect who we are. What it means to be an LGBT+ youth in America is changing faster than many people can keep up with. What it means to be living in poverty in America is changing much faster than many people can keep up with. As many people in this room are familiar with, those two narratives intersect all too frequently. I would love to live in a time when one of the nation's most prominent gauges for being young and queer in America doesn't have to be held at a summit on homelessness. The young people you're about to listen to are the faces behind those sterile numbers. These are their lives, these are their words, and this is the State of Out Youth. And with that, I will hand my metaphorical microphone over to Ayanna, who will begin.
I'm about to show y'all my story of my life. I'm originally from Jamaica, Montego, of course. I stayed there with my father and my grandma for a minute until the age of 16. Prior to that, I was growing up with the struggle of me coming out to my family being gay. In Jamaica, is no type of honor to being either gay or trans. It's a struggle, it's a real struggle. And day by day, you have to be afraid to be out in public as who you are, who you want to be. As I started to get older, prior to me trying to figure out how I was going to come out to my family down there, I started developing depressed. I became depressed over and over because I was trying to say I'm not being who I am. I'm fighting myself for them because I don't want to be judged or hurt from my family. So in prior of that, I have friends. If anybody's seen a documentary called The Gully Queens, the Gully Queens are the LGBT community in Jamaica that pretty much lives in the gutter and makes their self safe. Because it's prior of you being trans, LGBT community, if they see you in the street, they will kill you, they will hurt you, they will harm you in any type other way. So prior of that, I talked to my father. I finally came out to him and my grandmother. They said it wasn't going to be safe, so they sent me here with my mom. I came up here with my mother, been up here from the age 16 to 25 now. I struggled here coming out to my mom and her side of the family because I didn't know how they was going to react to me being who I was becoming. So when I came out finally telling them that I was gay, it became down south. And then it got worse when I said I wanted to be a transgender female. I was changing myself. And I became the black sheep of the family. I really didn't have nobody I could really talk to have me the guidance. I really didn't have the friends up here that can show me the way or the resources I need to move forward in my life. So I struggled a real bad depression to myself with nobody to speak to. So I moved forward on my own because I felt like I wasn't home. I started to do door-to-door salesman, to travel on my own to find myself and find my own voice. And I was on 2 crews. I was on cleaning products and then also magazine. The magazine one wasn't for me, so I ended up going to the cleaning product one. And it was okay, but I had an altercation with one of the dude I was rooming with that left me to be homeless in New Mexico, Albuquerque. I didn't have no money, no type of way to get home, so I had to wait almost a week for my mom and them to help me get the money. I didn't have nowhere to stay because I didn't know nobody, so I had to try to find a way on surviving down there. But I did meet some people that I did not know that was also homeless that showed me what I can and I can do to get to where I have to get to. Prior to that, I came back up here with my family and things started to change a little bit. I ended up starting to start my transitioning at Fan Free Clinic. And I met this wonderful lady that she came to me and she wanted to do a survey about how it is being a black trans, living in the community, in your community, what is the effects that you face. And from there, we connected to me doing a safe sex education mini movie for the LGBT community with her, to meeting Miss Alex and my crew, in Virginia, they right there. Met them to pretty much talk the topic that we all came here for, was to try to prevent homeless youth in our community. We had to let it be known that it was a real bad situation that was going on. And for that to happen, we had to come as a youth to unite together to face the problems and everything that we've been dealing with and going through, and prior of what we was dealing with in our own personal lives. We came from different backgrounds, of course, straight, LGBT. We might bump heads a couple of times, but we all work together to build an empire that we have now that's helping us move forward in what we is. Um, then I went to the summit last year, and it was my first summit. I didn't know nothing about True Colors, anything until last year. And I went with Miss Alex, of course, and that's when I met Twiggy and everybody from last year. And I got nominated, and I became here. And it's been a real excitement, a real true pleasure to be here working with these guys, because they helped me and opened my eyes to a lot of things that I did not know. They gave me more confidence in myself and kept my head up higher and what I'm dealing with in my personal life prior to what I'm facing with in reality. So I had to face with me blinding myself for what I want to believe than facing the problems head on. So I'm really grateful on that, and thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Dominic Gravina. I am 20 years old. I'm originally from the Bay Area, but I'm studying at University of Redlands, which is in San Bernardino. It's kind of a small liberal arts college, but I am actually here on behalf of the Trevor Project. But I guess I am also here because I think it's really important to share stories and queer narratives, because these are often the stories that get erased in the community. These are often the stories that get overlooked, or these are the stories that people don't want to listen to. And this was the case for me when I was growing up. I grew up in a, I wouldn't say predominantly Catholic household, but there was still that, religious aspect in my childhood. I went to, it wasn't Sunday school, but it was a version of that. It was like Tuesday school, where but it was like the same type of thing, where I would go and learn about my religion or supposed religion. And so that was always something that was with me when I was younger. And when I was younger, I, have the typical upbringing. I had, 2 parents and I had 2 sisters, and it was comfortable, but at the same time, I always felt like different from them. And as I grew older, I started exploring my sexuality, and I started realizing, oh, I think, I'm queer, but I came out as queer without the words to really know, what my sexual identity was, because at that time, I was like 12 or 11 in middle school. It was around the time when Prop 8 was still like on the ballot and was still like an issue that was being debated in California. And I didn't have anyone in my family to really look to and be like, hey, so like, what are these feelings? Because I was assigned female at birth. I was told, you're assigned female at birth, so you have to like cisgender men. And I was very much like, okay, well, why do I find like, this girl next to me really, really cute and attractive? What is this? What are these feelings? What is going on? And so I very much I didn't really have anyone to talk to about it. So I was like, okay, so I think I might be gay. Could be, I don't know. I tried on that label. And once I told people that, I ended up getting bullied and ostracized in middle school. I had people physically assault me, and I had people verbally assault me. And so that was pretty hard to deal with, especially as like a young kid who's growing up just trying to figure themselves out. And so as I grew older, I wanted to tell my parents hey, I'm struggling with this. I don't really understand what's going on. And instead of them opening a dialogue in a conversation with me, they very much shut it down and said, no, you are not like this. You are not queer, and that is that. As I grew older, a little bit older, my mom ended up getting a job at this Catholic school, and I was in 8th grade when she got the job, so she was like, hey, by the way, there's a high school there. I really want you to go there, because at this point I was getting bullied so much that I didn't really want to go to the public school that I was supposed to go to, because I was in public school for my whole life. Well, yeah, for my short life. But this high school also happened to be an all-girls school. And I had very much, when I was growing up, realized that my gender identity differed from my sex assigned at birth. So I was exploring that too at the time. So when I went to this Catholic all-girls school, it was very much femininity and being a woman and I just didn't really vibe with that. I really much had a lot of like, I had to like step back and really have like self-reflection and really understand, you know, what am I feeling? Like, why is this? I feel like this has something to do with more than just my sexuality. Like, what am I feeling right now? And again, at this point in time, I was about 13 or 14. There wasn't much information about what identifying as transgender meant, what, you know, resources were out there, that there were organizations out there, because I was very much like isolated. I didn't have, you know, family to go talk to because they were very verbally and emotionally abusive about, you know, me being queer. And then once I discovered the word transgender, everything just clicked for me. And when I told them, like, hey, by the way, I am exploring my gender identity. I very much identify with being transmasculine. I don't know what this means right now, but like, this is just where I am at the moment. And they were very much, you know, not open to, again, having a dialogue with me. So I felt really isolated because I couldn't go to them. They would, you know, not let me go talk to them about anything that was going on in my life. And so as I grew older through high school, I started to become more and more, like, come to terms more and more with me identifying as transgender, learning about these resources that were out there for me and other trans kids. And what was really hard for me was when I was growing up, you know, my parents wouldn't want to talk to me about these things. And then once they found out that at school I had, you know, cut my hair short and started to socially transition, they started to become more and more abusive. They started to, you know, tell me, if you go by Dominic at school, as opposed to your birth name, you know, we are going to take these things away from you. So when I was looking into going to college, I very much had told them while I was struggling through high school and being in this all-girls environment where there was a lot of hostility from the administration, and then there was a lot of hostility at home from my parents and them not wanting to really have like an open dialogue with me. I was like, okay, I need to find an environment in a college where I can, you know, go through this medical transition that I really wanted to go through. And so they had told me, if you decide to medically transition, we are going to kick you out and cut you off. So I went to college with the intention of trying to not go and pursue a medical transition. But as I grew, you know, into myself, I realized that I wasn't comfortable doing that. And so I really had to come to the terms with, I wasn't going to have my parents in my life, because I had really wanted to talk to them and have an open dialogue with them and really bring them through this journey that I was about to go on and be like, hey, like, this is me, this is what's going on. You know, I know you've had hostility towards me and like what I want to do, but I really want to bring you with me along with, you know, whatever's going to happen to me. And they very much were like, no, we don't want to talk to you about this. We don't want to, you know, be involved with this. This is not who you are. I got faced with, God didn't make you this way. You're going to ruin the family. All of our issues with our family are because of you and your transgender identity. So as I was going through my first semester of college, I suffered from a lot of, you know, mental health issues. I had at that time I had depression and anxiety, which I would soon find out I also had PTSD, which all stemmed from the abuse that I was having at home and also the hostility that I was facing at school and high school. And so it was hard because I ended up one day having a really severe panic attack. My friend ended up calling the police, which wasn't the best decision, because then the police officer came, talked to me. I disclosed to him, like, yes, I'm transgender. He deemed that as a mental illness, decided to bring me to a psychiatric hospital, and I was 5150'd, which means that I was under like a medical evaluation for being unstable. He had falsely accused me of saying that I wanted to, you know, take my life, which I hadn't told him. I had told him in the past I had struggled with, you know, attempts of taking my life. And he had reworded that to take me into this psych ward and basically deemed me mentally ill because of being transgender. And so I think it was that point when I was like, I'm done living for other people. I'm done trying to please my family. I'm done trying to please other people. I'm going to live for me, and I'm going to do what I think is best for my life, because I can only really take care of myself. So at that point, I basically decided, okay, I'm gonna have to take a leave of absence from my university. I'm gonna have to figure out, you know, are there resources for me out there to pursue this medical transition? So I ended up sitting down and writing my parents a 7-page long letter, and I read it to them, and I basically told them, like, I'm going to legally change my name and gender, and I'm going to pursue this medical transition because it's important to me. It's important to who I am as an individual. And they said that they weren't going to support it and that they wanted me out of the house the next day. And so ever since then, I have devoted my life to basically being an advocate for queer and trans voices because I think it's important. I think it's really important that we have spaces for people to talk about these stories that, you know, show a lot of resilience and also a lot of, you know, just compassion and really understanding that there are so many other people who have a similar narrative to mine, and that these resources that a lot of queer and trans organizations are providing for us are really important. And mental health is a big, you know, issue that's very intersectional with the trans and queer community because we go through so much on top of just trying to live our day-to-day lives as humans and individuals. And so I'm still like learning how to be on my own and learning how to just navigate spaces and really talk to people and share my story along with other people. So I'm really happy that I was able to come here today and talk with all of you. Thank you for listening.
Excuse me. Hi, I'm Genevieve. I'm a transgender woman, and I was born and raised in the San Fernando Valley, so I'm very proud to call myself a Valley girl. I want to thank you guys for allowing me to be here and share my story, and I hope that it benefits someone that's going through a similar situation, because I have been in that place where you feel like you're all alone and you cannot relate to anybody, and it's not a good feeling. There's 3 topics that I want to talk about tonight. One is using public restrooms. The other one would be my brief moment in the experience with foster care here in LA County. And then the third one would be family acceptance and how, you know, negative coping and housing instability plays in with that. So first I want to start with the public restrooms. Whenever I'd go out, I never really felt comfortable using the men's because, you know, I just knew something wasn't right, you know? And once I socially transitioned, I still wasn't okay with using the women's restroom because I felt like I was an imposter. And I felt that way pretty much all of high school, so I just refrained from using the restroom all 4 years. And once I got to my senior year, I saw that the LGBTQ population in my school was growing. And these were young freshmen that were, you know, too scared to speak out. So I knew that they had similar fears like I did. So what I did was I went to the administration to try and implement a non-gender specific restroom. And I got a little bit of backlash, and I was criticized. And so I went to the school board after that and spoke from the heart, and they granted it and implemented the gender non-specific restroom. And thank you. And after that, I was approached by some of the students that are part of the LGBTQ population in that school and some of the teachers of those students, and I was thanked for it. And that was a very important lesson for me. It made me realize that nobody's too small to be heard, and you just gotta advocate for yourself. And I've always been an outspoken person, so it came naturally to me, but I know for a lot of people it's really hard. And yeah, so that's that topic. So the next topic would be foster care. I was detained from both my mother and father, and I was placed into a 24-hour emergency shelter where they put the foster youth before placing them into like a 14-day, 30-day shelter. And while I was there, I realized that there was a lack of training going on. They had no idea what to do with me. And then since they didn't have guidelines to follow, they went by their own beliefs. And you know, a lot of people are not okay with us. So I was told that I was a man and I had to sleep with the boys, and I was outed to everybody, which I present as a female, and that could be detrimental. You know, they think that I'm female and then they think I'm tricking them. So my safety was compromised while being there, and I was forced to use the men's restroom. So it was just a horrific experience, and I would love for them to be forced to do training. Because really, even with my social worker, my permanent social worker, she wasn't trained, and she would refuse to call me by the pronouns I identified with and the name that I identified with then. And even after I got it legally changed, she still. So I'm working on that right now with Lambda Legal, and we're trying to make sure that no other foster youth has to go through that, because you're there for a horrific experience already. Why go through that, you know? So my next point would be family acceptance. This is the big one. And I always knew that I wasn't, like normal. And from a very early age, my mom used to let me express myself. And then as I got older and I was getting bullied more and more, she attacked me and basically made me go into a box and just be this boy that everybody wants me to be. And I was miserable, and I suffered from a lot of mental illness, and it was a rough time. And then my mom she kept blaming me and blaming me and blaming me and saying it's your fault that the people attack you and all this stuff, and it's not your fault. It's not your fault. And thank you. When I was, let's say 11, my dad told me that if I was a faggot, so this is a word he used, that I was going to be disowned, shunned from the family, and I was going to be thrown out. So that caused me to go back into that box so I wouldn't be homeless. And so for years and years and years, I lived as a boy. And then once I got to high school, I finally found out what the trans community was and what it was to be transgender. And it was great, because then I knew what was up. I wasn't lost anymore. And once I started to embrace myself, I was blaming my parents for not allowing me to be who I am at an earlier age. And I found that it was harder to have a relationship with them as I was blaming them. So once I stopped blaming them and just kind of opened up to them and allowed them into such a sensitive part of my life, this is a very it's very close to me, my trans identity. I found that once I allowed them in and stopped blaming them, I was able to build a relationship with them. And so today, both my mother and father accept me, but I still have family members that don't. Yeah. And I was kicked out because of my gender identity, and I was turned away from my own sisters because of it, because I was a bad influence to my nieces and nephew. So I had to sleep in my car sometimes, and it's tough. It's really tough, but you get out of it. And now I'm advocating for people that are like me so that they don't have to feel alone. And I plan to become a psychiatrist and offer affirming mental health care to low-income or homeless LGBTQ youth, because I'm like that, And so I mean, I just want everybody to know that you're not alone, and you need to create a family. If your your given family, your birth family is not working out, you need to create a family. And that's the way it is. Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. My name's Johnny, Johnny Ramos. I recently graduated from Santee High School, a school by Washington and Maple. A school in South Central. My PGPs are he, him, his. And some of the points I'm going to be talking about is youth homelessness, DCFS, and how I was outed by one of my sisters. So I want to start off by saying thank you for coming. Honestly, it means a lot to me that there's actually people out here who actually care and want to take their time and hear my story. So I'll get started. So I was born and raised in downtown Los Angeles. My father was undocumented. For a living, he sold drugs and narcotics. It's something that has to be done in order to keep your family going. It was super hard for us making it through. My mom still being in college, attending Cal State LA with 6 kids at the time. Now she has 7. But it was a daily struggle. My dad was deported when I was in 3rd grade. My brother ended up joining the Marine Corps, but beforehand he was actually given to Department of Child and Family Services. My brother became very violent, I guess he had anger issues. He would beat my mom, he would hit us, and it was a terrible experience. Pushing forward, going into high school, my sophomore year, getting called into the office saying, your dad passed away. And it was so shocking, and it sucked because he was suffering from diabetes type 2. He also lost his memory, so when he passed away, he didn't know who I was or who of any of his kids were, just my two older siblings. And it was very heartbreaking. My junior year, I kind of skipped along. But my junior year, I became more involved with my school. I joined the GLC network, which is a Genders and Sexualities Alliance network. And I became more like activist type. I started hearing out my fellow classmates. Oh, what does our school need? What are things that we're struggling with? And throughout this course of time, I came out to my sister. She actually asked me. And so, I was like, I guess I could trust her. Me and my sister actually grew up pretty well. Sure, we had our fights, but I guess it's common. So I came out to my sister. My sister outed me. And she told my parents. And I was raised Christian, Pentecostal, going to church every day besides Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And it was hard. My family, of course, did not accept it. And I was 17 and a half when this happened. Legally, they couldn't kick me out because I was a minor, but they still did so. I was thrown out on the streets and kind of went on Facebook and started posting for people to help me out. There was this lovely person who actually worked for the LA Unified and helped me out. She connected me to the LGBT Center. She connected me to DCFS. But I visited the LGBT Center. I was like, oh my God, it's a very great place. But as soon as I walk in, I see security, and they searched me if I had drugs, weapons, and it was at that point in time as I walked in, I didn't feel safe. It's like, this is not my place. And that's the way it was. I went into the LGBT Center, and it wasn't a warm, hi, welcome, you're safe here. It was just, oh, we offer STD testing, AIDS testing. You're welcome. We are an emergency shelter. We do offer transitional housing, but then again, they had a wait list. And up until this day, I haven't had an email besides, would you like to donate money to the LGBT Center? And it was honestly heartbreaking. And DCFS didn't want to put me into a foster care because I was 17 and a half. And they're like, you know what, you're about to be 18 and we can't do anything for you. Keep in mind, I was in high school and all my grades were dropping. I was going through depression, attempted suicide within our school restroom, getting placed into a mental hospital in the city of Watts. I believe it's Martin Luther King Center that they had. And it was like, we're going to take you to this place. It's going to be filled with youth. But it wasn't like that. There was just adults who were honestly crazy. And it became like unsafe. And I had to play this happy card in order to get out. And so I was like, no, actually, I have to get back to school because my grades are due within a month and I have to graduate high school. I ended up getting out of the mental hospital. Once I came out, our school was pushing for a multi-stall gender-neutral restroom. I was a spokesperson for my GSA at the time. Our school was actually one of the first schools in California to get not only a gender-neutral restroom, but a gender multi-stall restroom within the LA Unified and within the state of California. And so that was a great push. And going through this, I had unstable housing for 2 months, moving 6 times. And none of my classmates knew this, but I ended up telling one of my friends, and then my friends ended up telling this other people, and the whole school knew. And that's how it kind of went down. There's also this app called Oogle going around. It's practically campus feed, but our school is actually used as a burn bag. And I was placed on it, and they would kind of like make fun of how I was 1, homeless, 2, I was gay, and 3, my grades dropped. And so they're like, he's not going to graduate high school. He has to come back to summer school and then get his diploma. And it was just something, I looked at people that would normally smile, and it was just it would be stares and be like, oh, like people saw me different. And it was just, I guess high school was very rough for me. I didn't feel like I was going to get anywhere. I didn't feel like I was anyone. No one was out to hear me until I actually went into therapy. And then therapy really helped me out, although some people say it doesn't. But actually my therapist was very accepting. She was LGBT herself. So it's great. We had a great connection. And up until this point, herself and my organization helped me get on my feet. I was able to get a job. I currently work at the Home Depot. But, pushing forward, I guess my plans are to actually join LAPD. And I don't want to give back, but I want to pay it forward. Because not only does this community need better cops, but we also need streets which need to be safer and which need to be LGBT inclusive. There's also a department that is focused on LGBT within the police department, so that's actually pretty good. And I hope to join that department. And something that I wish that this community would offer is more shelters, and not only for teenagers over the age of 18, but for minors as well, because sure they could be here, but when I was homeless, where were you? Like, these organizations, these great organizations that are here were never presented to me. They were never presented to our schools, and I feel like these organizations should go within our schools, let these kids know that these places are here to help us out. And yeah, that's kind of it. Thank you for your time.
Wow. So I just have to make a quick disclaimer. I actually don't work for the Human Rights Campaign. I work for the Los Angeles LGBT Center. I'm a health education specialist here. But I was a youth ambassador for the Human Rights Campaign, and I am part of their HIV fellowship program. So that was just had to clear that up really quick. I got a lot to talk about, so I'm going to try to get through this quickly. So my name is Thomas Davis. I'm 24 years old. And, if you ask anybody, like, who's Thomas, they'll probably say, he's happy, he's always smiling, he has a little too much energy sometimes, he's an artist, he's a choreographer, he's an advocate, a proud HIV-positive black gay man. You'll probably say a lot of those. also known as somebody that kind of takes on a little too much. And that's something that I've done ever since I was in high school. You know, I was always involved in everything. Like if I was just in one more club, maybe I'll save the world. So it was something that, you know, I was always just so involved, and I was always just busy and running around and just doing everything that I loved, whether that was soccer, whether that was dancing, singing, acting, I was just always doing it. So, you know, whenever something would happen that was like a crisis, I guess, you know, I really, really valued what I was doing, so that a lot of the time took priority over what I needed to do to process things. I guess the first time that to better explain that, the first time I learned this was when I came out. I came out as a freshman in high school. I was one of the only black kids in my school, the only adopted kid, the only out gay kid. Just, you know, the only like boy that like sang and danced and did all this stuff. So when I came out, you know, my family was actually, and my friends were actually very supportive. But on the other end, I was part of this Christian drama group, and we were doing Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and I was playing Aslan, who's supposed to symbolize Jesus or whatever. So, you know, when everybody in there found out, everybody was pretty supportive except for one person, and she went and told her father, who got all the parents together, and they all banded together and basically ended up kicking me out. And that was, you know, a really hard process. But I was involved in so many things. I was like, you know what, I have to keep on going. I can't have this, you know, like mess with me. You know, and so, you know, to keep from giving into, you know, a lot of the depressing thoughts that I was had, a lot of the suicidal thoughts I was having, I was just like, all right, you just got to pull it together, shoulders back, chest up, chin up, and just smile. And everybody else will believe it. They'll stop messing around with you, and maybe eventually you do. And it actually worked for that. It did. It was something, and then there I was like, okay, so whenever something happens, I just need to stay focused on what I did. This is just how I need to go about it. You know, sounds reasonable. Fast forward to when I graduated. Well, no, I didn't graduate yet. When I was going into my senior year of college, my last semester actually. It was about 2 weeks before I was about to graduate. I mean, not to graduate, till we were supposed to start the new semester. And I found myself being told, your test is reactive. You are most likely living with HIV. And, you know, most people, I mean, not most people, I shouldn't say that, but, you know, typically people, from my experience, think that, you know, you'd get really emotional at this point. And for me, I just stared at her, and I asked, okay, what do we do now? They sent me up with an appointment. I said thank you, and I left. I went home. I smoked a blunt. And then, because I didn't want to feel anything, in case anything did come up, because I wasn't feeling anything. So that's what I did. I did that. And then I went off to class, because I had classes to do. I was a dance major. I was like, I have to go. I need to be able to dance. I'll worry about this later. I'm just going to keep on going. Shoulders back, chest up, chin up, hit the blunt, smile, go on with your day. So that was just my way of coping with that. And as, you know, I started to, you know, live with HIV longer and longer, you know, after about a year, I realized, you know, this wasn't something that was going away. Just smiling and being happy wasn't making it go away. So I was like, okay, well, maybe if I start speaking up and I find other people like me, that can help. So I started speaking up, and I made this video, and I shared it with people, and then, you know, I started going to conferences, and one conference turned into 2 conferences, turned into 3, turned into speaking gigs, turned into being a youth ambassador for the Human Rights Campaign, turned into being a youth ambassador for Advocates for Youth, turned into being an NMAC youth scholar, and I found myself just being really overrun with these things, and it was really, really cool. On one end, I was like, this is awesome, like I'm able to do this, but at the other end, I was like, wait a minute. I still haven't really processed all of this. I've been running around trying to do all this stuff, and it's been really empowering, and it's been really great for me, but there's still all this other stuff that I'm not attending to, but I can't do that right now. You know, Thomas has to be strong. Thomas has to keep on going. Thomas has to be smiling. Thomas has to be happy. Thomas has to do this, because if nobody else does, if I don't do it, who else is gonna do it? You know, so it got to the point where I was like, I can't just stop. Like, I can't take time to really take care of myself that much. You know, every once in a while I can go and do something for myself, but I can't just stop. I gotta be strong. I have to keep on going. Just keep on going. You know, so a lot of things happen to try to numb those feelings. You know, a lot of trying to just sex it away, a lot of trying to just smoke it away, all that kind of stuff. So, that just kept on going, and that at least, kept me from feeling too much, and then I could just focus, shoulders back, chest up, smile, keep on going, just keep on going. So, fast forward again. The place that I was living, I had to get out of there because my roommates weren't paying rent, and it screwed up my dad's credit and my credit, and I had to get out of there. So I was couch surfing. People don't want to call that being homeless. I know. People don't want to call it that, but that's what it is. So I was couch surfing, and I thought I had people that I could rely on. The first guy that I stayed with, he just couldn't let me stay there for too long. It was just limited space, and he just helped me out as much as I could. The second person was sexually molesting me in my sleep. That was going on for about a month, and I didn't have any other options, so I had to just grin and bear it and deal with it because I didn't have anywhere else to go. Third person, when I finally got rid of that, he turned out to be a crystal meth addict. And that was when something was introduced to me that made me feel good when nothing else did. And I found myself running around and getting tired and still going out and doing speaking gigs, still going and dancing with a professional modern company, still going to conferences, still doing all this stuff, and I was just running myself ragged, but I just was like, I can't stop this. I can't stop. Like, I have to keep on going. Like, you just have to just get through these few months, keep your job, and then you'll get there. You'll get there. But I got to a point where I didn't recognize the person that was staring back at me in the mirror. My cheekbones were wearing away. I was getting skinnier. My muscles were going away. And I was just not, I started to hate the work that I was doing. I wasn't passionate about it. I wasn't dancing for months on end. I was just really, really unhappy, but people didn't see that because when I would go out, I'd just throw it back on and I'd be fine. And people would think I was fine at least. So when I finally realized that, I had a problem and I needed to get help with this, it was really difficult. People are like, oh, well, why didn't you say something before? Well, I didn't say anything before because I hear about how everybody else talks about others in the community that have been addicted to crystal meth. You hear about how everybody does it, and you're like, no, I'm not going to tell you then. I hear you dragging this person's name through the mud, and you want me to open up to you? And that's why it's killing our community. And nobody wants to talk about it for that reason. It's like, well, why didn't you ask for help? I thought I was screaming for help, screaming, waving my arms, saying, help me, help me, help me. But it's like I was underwater and everybody else that claimed to be concerned was on the shore trying to look for some kind of indication on the surface. But instead of diving in and actually seeing what lies beneath, they're comfortable being back here. And even if they could see what was going on, there's not a whole lot they can do. They can throw you a life raft, but that's not going to get you anywhere. And I got places I need to go and things I need to do, so I just kept it to myself. So when I started to actually get help for that and actually opened up to seeing a therapist and really seeing a psychologist too, and really figuring out how to heal Thomas, how to bring him back. I realized that, my emotions started to turn back on. I realized the things that I had been tolerating that I would never tolerate before. And, I realized that because I was so focused on doing the work, I wasn't able to do it anymore. It just got to be way too much. I was so focused on this, and I was focused on this that I wasn't taking care of myself, to the point where I wasn't even able to do what I was once so passionate about. So, I've been in the process of falling back in love with who Thomas really is, and it's been a lot. Really falling in love with who he really is. The good stuff and the messy stuff. And it's been a little difficult. A lot of people, they take it personally when your emotions start to turn back on. They think it's about the way they're being treated by you, but it's not. It's not about them. It's not about them at all. And people won't understand, and that's okay. And people won't stick around, and that's great. And but at the end of the day, I realized that I wouldn't have been able to fall back in love with myself unless I actually took the time to say, I'm not okay. And we don't want to say that. We don't want to say I'm not okay because I'm supposed to be a leader. I don't want to say I'm not okay because I'm supposed to be an advocate. I don't want to say I'm okay because I'm supposed to be this happy person. I have to be okay. But it was only when I really realized that I was actually able to get the help that I needed. And I think that's what we need to do more as a community. We really need to be able to speak up when you're not okay, when things aren't going the way, when you need help. You know, you have to reach out to somebody, even if it's a professional. But that's really the only way I think I got through. Well, I'm still getting through what I'm going through. Yeah, that's all.
In the next 15 minutes or so. I'd like to remind you all to tweet your questions to them with the hashtag OutYouthForum, because after this we're going to head into another room and do a live Google Hangout in which these fine fellows will answer your questions. One concept that I heard come up kind of over and over again was mental health. I wonder, as an open question to the five of you, what can be done in the mental health world to better cater to LGBTQ youth?
Well, I'll start with that, I guess. One of the things I think that I find kind of crazy was, you know, when I was finally diagnosed with HIV, I found that there were all these services that I could now get because I was positive. You know, I was able to get like a therapist, all this stuff. Like I was able to do that because I was positive, but there's nothing for that for people that don't have a pre-existing condition. You know, and that's always baffled me. I'm like, there's nothing where somebody that's really in financial need or that really needs it can go and like get that covered. And that's I don't know why there isn't anything like that. And if there is, maybe I just don't know about it. But I feel like something like that, a program like that, is very needed. You know, because it gets to this weird place where it's like, oh well, if I have this going on or this going on, then I can finally get the help that I need. But it's like it gets really confusing and just odd.
I can speak on it. I know that there are a lot of psychologists and psychiatrists out there that aren't very familiar with the trans community and what to do with us. And they think that a lot of them are ignorant and think that we're confused and mentally ill. And that's not what it is. So I think that we need more mental health care professionals that know what they're doing, basically. Yeah.
I feel like we need more people and that's help like psychiatrists or counselors who has experience or has somebody in their family that's experiencing something that we have experienced, that them telling us, oh, well, I understand where you're coming from, but don't really understand. Definitely being in the LGBT community, you can't look at me and say you understand where I'm coming from if you're not experiencing it. Definitely when it comes to LGBT, as transgender women, you can't be a straight woman telling me, oh, I understand what you're coming from. I understand what you're going through. I understand what you're dealing with. You don't deal what I do daily basis. You don't have to wake up fearly like, okay, am I going to get hurt one day or the next day? You're not facing my problems that I'm facing. So don't tell me you understand. I'm here for help. I don't want you to try to cope with me and tell me, oh, it's going to be all right, which you know it's not. I'd rather you be honest and truthful and heartful with me.
I think also too, from my experience with like mental health and as a trans person, having to constantly educate someone who's I'm trying to get help with is really exhausting. Trying to just sit there and then be like, wait, so you are transgender, but you're also intersex, so how does that work? And I'm over here trying to be like, hey, like I almost attempted to take my life the other day. Can we actually address that instead of me trying to educate you? Because I'm exhausted of educating people. There's Google, there's other search engines, yes. Like there's social media. I post about it on social media. You can go read that. There's so many other people and resources out there. Sometimes like in a professional like mental health setting, I shouldn't have to be an educator, and it's just sad that that's the case. And it's also sad too when you're faced with, you know, someone who's supposed to be in the mental health, you know, sphere and is trying to help you too, and they're really ignorant and they're like, oh, let me fix this problem, because they see, you know, I've had a therapist previously who was intended to like fix me. My parents had wanted him to like fix my behavior, and just the fact that he is willing to even do that was really surprising to me and was really sad. Like, that shouldn't be the case. So just more education, I think, for the mental health field and mental health professionals, and just going from there is really important.
And I want to say and follow along what she said, which was actually hire professionals that actually know what they're doing, not honestly place you in a place where there's not going to be youth like you that are going through the same things. Imagine a 17-year-old going to a mental health environment where there's a bunch of like 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds. It's like, I'm not supposed to be here. And it's just, honestly, hire professionals that, again, know what they're doing.
Cool, thank you. I also wanted to ask, and this is a little bit abstract, forgive me, but what does survival mean to you specifically?
There I go. Survivor means to me is you taking your life in control. You're not letting anybody else lead your path for you. You're not going to let them blind you for what you believe and what you feel in your heart. Follow yourself and follow the path that you truly believe to survive and make you happy.
Can I go?
Yeah.
I believe that it means doing whatever you got to do to stay safe and stay true to yourself, whether it means, you know, punching someone or staying away from, you know, the negative coping, you know, or going to the services that we have, actively seeking them to help yourself instead of just giving up and living on the streets. That would be survival to me. Yeah.
Survival to me would be family comes first to me. I feel like in the Latino community, family always comes first. So for me, it would be family, food, and shelter. Having those three things would kind of better my life. Currently, I don't speak to any of my family members besides my mom, which I have 2 months talking to her. But I feel like if I were to have a family and someone to talk to on a daily basis, that would be my survival.
For me, I mean, yes to all that, but I guess for me, it's been I can only speak for myself, it's been a little different. I mean, I feel like that's just what I've been doing since I moved out to LA. I've just been trying to survive. You know, that's just constantly fighting and having to think on my feet and roll with the punches and adapt and just keep on going and keep on going. But I just feel like I've been surviving life. But I don't want to survive life. I want to live it. I don't want to survive life.
I think going off of what everyone else has said, I totally agree with that. I want to live life. I feel like, too, surviving for me is just knowing that, like, okay, I have all of these things going on. I have all of this chaos in my life, but if I'm able to just sit back, relax, acknowledge the privileges that I have, too, because I think that's really important, knowing that, like, it could be worse. I could be in a worse place right now. I've been in a worse place right now. So I'm surviving. I'm getting through this. And it, hopefully, in the end, will settle down.
All right, I believe that is all we have time for today. If you are watching at home, all you have to do is scroll down and there's another video embedded next to a picture of the lovely E.J. Johnson. And tweet your questions with Out Youth Forum. It will begin at 3:30 Pacific Standard Time and 6:30 Eastern Standard Time if my math is correct. So see you then. Thank you.
We are unstoppable.